flopped out of his shorts while he was running. He ran the entire race with that hanging out.
Power move. Here's my Mormon dick. Welcome back to the Rewatchers on the Pod, the podcast where we talk about movies and TV and shit, and we're currently watching The Leftovers. You're here with me, Tyler Harris, and...
Gwen Hammer.
Tyler McKinley.
Justin Hammer.
And last week on this podcast, we didn't say anything, and 2 weeks ago we didn't say anything, and 3 weeks... I don't know how long it's been. I honestly lost track.
The last record date was June 27th.
Okay, yeah.
It's July 25th right now.
We are now a monthly podcast.
Yeah.
Suck it. No, yeah, I don't know. It's summer, and we've all been in our houses for 18 months, and now we don't have to be as much. And so then we went out and caught other illnesses and, got into other trouble. So, yeah, but we're back. We're basically reviewing. I think that by the time we finish The Leftovers, it will have taken us basically a week per episode to cover it. So it's like we watched it in real time. But here we are. We are going to talk about episodes 3 and 4 of season 3 of The Leftovers. And maybe it's been 3 weeks since you watched them. And if that's the case, here's summaries written by our own Tyler McKinley to catch you up and remind you about everything that happened in those episodes. Here we go. Episode 3, Richard Cheese Depeche Mode cover. Fucking love Richard Cheese. Melt that shit over whatever and I'll eat it. Garvey Sr. gets Aboriginal. Garvey Sr. gets Cotton Release. Garvey Sr. goes all Council of Nicaea and makes revisions of Bible 2. Garvey Sr. is very upset his character was written out of Bible 2. Garvey Sr. meets Chris. Dragon's tongue is a hell of a drug. Tony the Chicken gives Garvey Sr. purpose. Watch out for falling paranoid schizophrenics. Even the ambulances in Australia are dangerous. Flame on. It's fucked. Garvey Sr. just wants to eat noodles, but the noodle wants to eat him. He wakes up in a nice house and he has a catheter, so he lets that Beyblade rip. The amount of drugs that are cocktailed in this man's system is worrying. Grace has the wrong Kevin. Episode 4, sexy music for the TSA. Even sexier moments in the airport bathroom, I guess. Baby making on the baby changing counter. That's like a good album name. Nora has a bus to catch. Bruce likes pancakes, and anyone in their right mind does. Nobody can eat pancakes at a time like this. Kevin's are missing. These pancakes are so fucking good, it's bringing dead people to the studio. People just be throwing babies at Nora. Second best take on the that's okay. Second best take on me cover I've heard in an abandoned building. Okay, this next cover of Take on Me is taking the second place in abandoned buildings and second place in Take on Me covers that include the brass section. Kevin has a permanent deep fake app installed in his brain. Nora gets declined from the Disappear program. Couples therapy by firelight, magical. Kevin finds the people he wants to be with, other crazy people. Oh man, this cover of Take on Me might be better than the original. Okay, first things first. Could you pick 2 more cliched songs to get obsessed with than Where's My Mind and Take on Me? Listen, I say that as a huge fan of both of those songs, but that's just because I'm a member of the human race. We're born with that in us. It used to be Yankee Doodle Dandy, and now it's... I guess the human race wasn't born with that. Absurd. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it just is. It's a big eye roll moment.
See, but for me, as like the non-music connoisseur, I'm like, I recognize this song.
That's why they do it.
And then I feel smart. They do it for dumb people like me.
I mean, I think it's fun. And like but yeah, I don't know if I've ever watched another show where it's like we're gonna use 4 different versions of the same song within 45, like within an hour-long episode. Like that's gonna be like the most of our musical choices in this in this episode. And I don't know. Again, love those songs. If Aha's listening, I love that song. If Frank Black is listening, I love that song.
Yeah.
They're not listening. All right, let's talk Garvey Sr., who has just done what all of us have thought about at some point, picking up and moving to the good old Down Under. Yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on Garvey Sr.'s the marvelous misadventures of Garvey Sr. in the Outback, I guess?
I don't know about you guys, but I loved this episode.
Okay.
Felt just like wacky in the best way, and it was like it balanced compassion for Garvey Sr. with like severe judgment of what he was doing and thinking very well, I thought. Yeah. I liked it a lot. It was a weird journey.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing about this show sometimes is like you just are confronted with characters who make just insane decisions, and then like 20 minutes later they're like, look, they made the right one. Like, oh, it all worked out somehow. And it's like a mixture of this thing of like being, oh, that's kind of cool, and maybe they're not so bad. Maybe there is something to all this. But yeah, his I think for me, like the stuff in this episode that like you're saying that you got that compassion for him, like for me that was like all through like the tape recorder. Like that was like kind of what all that hinged on. And I think was something that we really haven't gotten any of that for Garvey Sr. this whole show. And like it's even one of those things where it's like I was reminded this episode, oh yeah, his like mental episodes and things all started happening like right after the departure, and like I was like, oh yeah, because I had kind of forgotten that and that it wasn't, but
I
yeah,
definitely
liked all
thought
that
back
stuff.
to that flashback episode where he's normal at that birthday party,
Sure.
and just the contrast between what that Kevin would say to his current self.
Yeah. You'd be like, listen, you could be hooking up with the mayor. You're 70 years old. You could be hooking up with the mayor. Yeah, it is pretty crazy. Justin, do you have any thoughts on kind of this episode? Just in general?
Just in general, I actually am. I wasn't expecting us to actually go to Australia this season, and when we did, it was really cool. Like, as somebody who hasn't watched a lot of stuff from Australia, I thought, like, especially anything that focuses on like the Aboriginal people that are there, like modern, in like experiencing modern life today, for at least modern life for them, like this is a world that I've only ever like seen or experienced in like Discovery Channel kind of stuff.
Sure.
And so like seeing them go there and interact with the people there, like, and the parallels between what I'm seeing and like kind of the things that I've seen with people living on reservations here in the United States, that was like, just from like an educational point of view or like eye-opening point of view, like, yeah, these issues are happening in another place in the world as well. And then like after the episode was over, Gwen and I spent some time where we were like looking up the actor who played the guy that falls off or gets smashed by Garvey.
Christopher Sunday?
Yeah, Christopher Sunday. I can't remember the actor's name. I probably can't pronounce it, even if I did remember. But he's had like a super long, extensive career in acting. He was a really incredible dancer as well. So we were looking him up, and like we watched some of his early dance videos from like the 70s or something, and like it was just kind of cool to be in like this totally different headspace of stuff that I've never really experienced before. I mean, like, yeah, I should probably look into this stuff more. And like the comment about when Garvey Sr. is like, he tells the lady who's like the liaison or whatever, like, what about when your government stole all of their children or whatever? And that's like an event that I've heard of before, but haven't ever really actually educated myself on. So yeah, it's like we went to Australia, and then like as an American viewer, like we really went to Australia with a lot of stuff that I wasn't expecting, because that's stuff you just don't think about really as an outsider to the country. So
Sure.
yeah, really cool stuff.
Yeah, the Stolen Generations thing, that was a thing that I remember when I first watched this. That was something I looked into, and thinking about like obviously the work that Damon Lindelof does on Watchmen and that opening episode, you know, where it was about these social race riots, which was another thing that is from American history that I didn't know. Like, I think it is interesting and cool that there are those like very specific call outs to real events. And, you know, like you said, it was just like, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, that Kevin Senior episode has taught me a lot about the lost generations.
Right,
But the fact that I looked something up about it and learned about it, like that's kind of a cool thing.
And the odd like relevancy that we're experiencing with like just modern events, current events, with the stuff that's going on in Canada right now, the pushback to the Catholic Church and all the burnings that are happening because of all that. So, like, it's just yeah. There's like unintentionally really heavy stuff that I experienced as a result of watching this episode at this time.
Yeah,
I thought it was a little bit disappointing that what was his name? Christopher Sunday? Was that the character's name?
That was the character's name.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little bit disappointing that his role in the story ended like almost as a punchline. Sure. But at the same time, it kind of makes sense because it's this white dude's arrogance and self-importance that ends up harming someone else, like unintentionally, but he kills the dude,
right?
You know, because he can't let go the idea that, like, he's so well intentioned, he wants to save the world, but he kills a dude. You know, like it was disappointing as a punchline, but it also like makes sense within the context of Garvey's mania.
Sure, yeah, and let's talk about that mania, which is like an interesting combination of I'm the father of Jesus Christ and Noah. Like he is like I birthed this amazing child, and also I'm gonna fucking save the goddamn world. And like that whole like thing is a driving factor for him is so. It's so frustrating to me to like watch. And I think in particular, like that episode where the scene where he calls not Kevin, God damn it. Matt, thank you. Jeez. And complains about not being in the new Bible and everything is like hilarious to me. And I think that like that scene with Matt is actually really interesting, kind of given the context that we have of what's going on in his life. I think they do a really great job with just that little snippet of like checking back in on that situation, and it's just sucks. Matt's home situation is just completely falling apart, and all that. But yeah, anyways, I think that stuff is really interesting. The other thing I wanted to talk about real quick was we get a callback, a very direct and like maybe one of the clearest explanations of kind of Kevin's trip to the afterlife or whatever from season 2 when he sees his dad on TV, and Garvey Sr. basically confirms without, because he doesn't remember that, but basically confirms what we saw on TV is literally the situation he was in, which was in a hotel room with an open fire on the bed. He was using to commune like to the other side, which like I think is a great like payoff for that whole thing, and is just, it's not something that I don't think I really expected to get that level of information for that episode.
The way that entire story is told, I've heard that story from people before, like not that exact, obviously those exact details, but the way that is told is like, I was here, this happened to me, and like, and then just like the next jump to the next thing, and of course like that logically all makes sense. And like, I have been around people who are like, it just took me back to my mission, like hearing people tell me these stories and like, wow, like that's incredible that you're telling me all this stuff. But now, like, I was also telling him some pretty crazy shit too. So I guess it goes both ways.
It's just like fast and testimony meeting, and that one ward member gets up, and you know you're going to hear this incredible story.
You
that
adjust in your seat, embrace.
Yeah. All right, who's wielding the priesthood for Jesus in the Walmart today?
And the way that Christopher Sunday is just sitting there, like taking it all in, like, and he looks like he's like, yeah, of course. It, like, at least to me, he came across as being like very accepting and maybe believing, but I don't know for sure because he also is like, you want to help me out? Like, the first thing you do is fix my swamp cooler.
Yeah.
So,
See, that took
yeah.
me back to the mission. I was like, oh, listen to what you got to say. You want to do this dangerous thing?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anything, just go under the water.
But yeah, I think all that stuff is really, really great. And I think that Scott Glenn too is like, he's a pretty great actor. It's just, I like his performance in this role a lot. He's just a prickly old bastard, in the best ways. But yeah, this show also does like a healthy amount of like foreshadowing and stuff. I think particularly with the man that Kevin or Garvey Sr. meets in the desert, that we kind of get asked that question that we encounter in the next episode with Nora. And there's still some stuff from season 2 that like is really brief, and like, it's not even that brief. There are like characters from season 2 that we've seen once or twice that we don't really know anything about them that will be a bigger part of the next couple episodes. And like the fact that this show does that within episodes and even like kind of across these last 2 seasons, I think is really, really interesting. And I think it helps bolster kind of this show's themes, like the ideas that it has on religion and like belief and all of that, because those are never all of those pieces are given to different characters, it seems, and only like us as viewers really has this complete view of a lot of those things. And so I think that that's really interesting and cool. And like I said, they do that kind of in that smaller way with between this episode and the next episode we'll talk about. But yeah, cars don't explode like that. I've become very passionate about this because I watch Cars on Fire at my job at least 4 or 5 times a week. The last couple months it's been like two a day.
Oh no.
Yeah, they don't explode like that. There are some pretty gnarly explosions, but it's always just tires popping, which
yeah.
creates the coolest fire effects. Just so you know.
The gas tank doesn't just blow up.
I mean, that's the thing is like, I don't think that car, like this one, it always feels like it's the engine, because that's in my mind growing up. I was always like, when the car blows up, it's the engine, because it's always in the front. It's all, you know what I mean? And so like, and to be fair, most of the cars I see on fire there, and the fire department's there in like 2 minutes anyways. So anyways, but that man,
But they just kind of catch fire, right?
What?
They just kind of catch fire. They don't like.
Yeah.
It's like grenades in Hollywood. Like no movie is ever.
Right.
Grenades don't cause fiery explosions.
Yeah, there's not a huge amount of like pyrotechnics involved in a grenade. There's an efficiency there that is made to kill people.
It gets me very upset when I see grenades in movies. Like it takes me right out, and it shouldn't. But I'm like, this movie's a 0 out of 10. Logan, he gets the grenades in the truck. He's like, this movie's going pretty good.
Whoops.
Till now.
That sounds like a great gimmicky letterbox account. 0 out of 10, grenades. 10 out of 10, no grenades. But yeah, so that, but I think kind of, we get this, I feel like this episode more than any other is really reminiscent of kind of the first Matt episode that we have. There are elements of kind of this, suffering that is being romanticized by the sufferer in a way, and obviously very like Christian symbolism and symbology kind of towards the end of not the end of this episode, but the end, when he is completing this walk through the desert and ends up at that cross and all of that.
So, just a thought about that. Gwen and I actually talked about that a little bit, and for me personally, like we talked about those comparisons, and Matt's episode to me felt a lot more like gentler about its criticisms around faith and religion, and this episode felt like they were just like they didn't hold back on really anything. Like I can't talk right now. I'm feeling that way about all of season 3, is that it's just like leaning really heavily into like just this really harsh criticism of Christianity specifically, but I think like just religious belief systems in general. And we'll probably, I'm assuming when we like when we finish this up and have like recap on everything, talk more in depth about this. But like for me personally, so far, this episode is just like, this is how Christianity happened, and look at how crazy and ridiculous and stupid it is. Versus Matt's episode, where it was like had more of a gentler take on like faith, and sort of had like, to me at least, it kind of highlighted some of like maybe the personal fulfillment that you can find with a religious belief system or a Christian faith or whatever. And like, so yeah, they were very similar, but I feel like this season it's just like they're not holding back at all.
Sure. I wonder, one of the things too that has changed since the first season is that I can't remember if this is true of season 2. I know it's true of season 3. One of the consulting producers on the show now is a guy named Reza Aslan, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with. He wrote that book. Gwen, do you remember the name of that? I'm not asking you because you're the book person, but I feel like we've talked about it before. The one about Christ.
He wrote God, and he wrote it's like Heretic or
Zealot.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Zealot was the one I started reading and like kind of just didn't stick with.
Yeah. God was a lot better. And I'd also like to read No God But God, which is his like survey of Islam.
Interesting. Okay. But yeah, so and he is a for anyone who doesn't know, he's a religious scholar, and Zealot is kind of his like it's a book about the historical Christ, or historical Jesus. I don't know what the correct terming there would be, but
Mr. Christ.
Mr. Christ, yes, exactly. Christ is recognized by the Internal Revenue Service. Just another number. To us, you're just another number.
Render unto the IRS.
Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's.
But I do wonder, just based on what I have read of his work and stuff, I do wonder if he was if part of that is from the consulting they did with him. I don't know. I do think that's interesting. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's an interesting thing to bring up, and I will be interested. Alex would be interested to talk about that again next week. Yeah, I'm not going to say anything else about that. But yeah, I do think that despite that harder edge that you're talking about, Justin, there are still moments that we get in this episode that maybe point to this, like, the importance of hope, and possibly the hope that belief can bring in Grace. You know, we see in Grace's character, I should say.
Man, she just felt like this, like, punctuation mark on, like, look at how insane all of these people are for believing all of this stuff. To me, like, at the end when she's telling her story about, like, losing her kids, like believing that they've been disappeared or whatever, they were one of the 3%.
But in that case, can you blame her? Like, people actually disappeared. Her children were gone.
Right, but then it's like she's just like she just keeps going even further in when like this coincidental guy shows up who happens to be like, you've got the wrong Kevin. Like, it's just like there's all these these coincidences are being like shown as like maybe there's something pulling the strings, but not really. Like, it's just all these coincidences. Like, this is how religion happens, and people believe all this stuff because it's just all coming together, and they have to find a purpose behind it. And like,
Yeah, but like that, telling the stories, showing these people's pain, I think is a very compassionate look at it. Like, because there is no reason for the disappearance of 2% of the world's population, and there is no good reason why Evie was killed by a missile. Like, people are just looking for something. They are looking for an explanation. They are looking for some sort of power or redemption, and they can't find it anywhere, and so they make it up. And I think the show does a good job of showing the compassion for this situation while still condemning the crazy and the harm that comes out of it. So
Yeah.
like, I really appreciated her story, like the compassion hand in hand with the crazy.
Yeah, I think that's the contrast between Grace and Garvey Sr. and several other characters we've seen. Because she talks multiple times where everything that pushed her along was a moment of pain and suffering and she's looking for an answer when something came. So she, to me, at the very end when she's like, or no, at the very beginning, she's like, hey, I'm going to turn myself in type of thing is kind of that changes that for me. And then she elaborates on her story of like, you're dealing with a woman who's just in pain and is looking for answers and when they didn't play out was ready to accept the responsibility of that until possibly another answer came along. Because you don't want to disappoint God. So it's like I don't know, but I guess that also goes into a critique of Christianity of like that fear of God versus doing
And always
what's logically correct.
Yeah, always looking for the next step of faith. Like, oh, well, that one didn't turn out, so I'm being tested, so I better do something else crazy because I'm being tested again.
And maybe it's because I empathize too much with her because I have personally been guilty of that. Well,
Exact thing.
I've never killed a man. I was going to start saying I never drowned a man, but I should say I've never killed another person ever.
It was Tyler in his backyard with the seesaw.
But I mean,
You killed those baby birds, didn't you?
but I mean that was, I mean, not to get too personal, but that was kind of the reason I think I was the last one out of everyone here to leave. Like, I don't know, mine was a lot slower. I feel like than everyone's felt more defined than mine. I feel like, but like that was a big part of it was because I felt I had to experience personally the fallacy, and I couldn't accept other people's. Like, I respected everyone's experience, but I was like, I can't make a huge life-changing decision until I have experienced and witnessed something personally that would challenge the things I have really only felt up to that point. And like that was a big part of it. Is like I just kept going to the next. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Maybe it's because I have too much empathy for it. I do feel for her character more than I do necessarily for. I mean, to me, Garvey Sr. should never have been let out of the madhouse. Like, whoever signed off on that. Yeah, I don't know. So that's a lot harder for me to get on board with, even though I know the show might be going the direction of he's totally right. I don't know. That those two characters are a really big contrast to me, at least.
Sure.
It's hard because, like, he genuinely thinks he has to do this stuff to save the world, which, like, is nuts. But I could go along with it if he wasn't hurting anyone. But he also has, like, this self-importance and, like, grandiosity that he has to, like, call Matt and be like, why the fuck am I not in the Bible? Like, and that sort of arrogance. And
well, I think it's hard for me to empathize with him, too, because what he's doing seems like, oh, you are not responsible for your actions, essentially. You just need to be put in an institution because you are that insane. Like, I didn't find myself judging him as an asshole so much as I didn't care so much about all the details they're trying to get into, because it all just, to me, wrapped up into you're a paranoid schizophrenic. Like, and you need help.
Yeah. I think, like, regardless of whether you think that kind of this episode overall as a criticism, or like, I think that it does do a great job of highlighting the murkiness of all of that. You know what I mean? I think evidenced just by the conversation we've just had, just barely. And that, again, I can't really think of another show that has done that for me about this issue specifically. And so I think it is really fascinating. And really cool. Anyways, I don't know if you have any other kind of thoughts on that stuff. Do you have any thoughts? Let's just kind of go on this episode as a whole before we move on. Is there any
they're building a boat.
Things?
Someone's building a boat, and I want to know if that's like
Sure.
what that's about. And does she have servants? Like, they call her the lady of the house, which is very servant language.
Yeah.
I thought they were her kids until she said that they were gone, and then I was very confused.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else like that in the episode that they kind of hinted at and didn't go into. The man has had a lot of drugs, a lot of them at once. I was a bit skeptical that things.
God, I'm so terrified of even over-the-counter medicine that scene
Yeah.
was like, he's gonna die.
Yeah.
This isn't real, right? People don't actually do that, right? Please
Wait,
tell me people don't do
Can
that.
I ask you why your fear of that is? Like, is it just because you think you're going to die if you take too
I'm
many?
afraid that I'm going to forget that I've taken 2 Tylenol, and then I'll take 2 more Tylenol, and I'll die.
Gotcha.
Oh, I had that same thing. Like, that happened to me this week. I was like, I've taken so much ibuprofen for my back. I was like, I don't remember if I did. I'm in a lot of pain.
You should start
But,
writing
like,
it down.
I
That's what
I now
want you to
have
do.
a sticky note on the bottle. And I'm like, dude, my liver's just going to be bleeding like crazy.
Well, I gave myself ulcers a couple years ago with ibuprofen, so be careful.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How many? We'll talk about this after.
That's I only ask because I have like a similar fear, but my fear is like, what if when I do need the drugs, they don't work because I've taken too
The
many
drug
other.
that cried wolf.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, listen, we're in here, but we can't do anything because you took NyQuil twice a week for 2 weeks. What do you expect us to do now? I'm a Klonopin. I don't know. Whatever.
I do that is a more practical fear than mine.
Well, no, it's insane. It's dumb. Anyways,
I do want to talk about catheters for a second.
please, God.
Hey, is that like how you get? Can you just do that? Like, can you really just pull it, or is there a special method you got to do?
I think it. Okay, I'm pretty sure that it depends on how. I think you can pull it out, like at any point
Safely, I mean.
No, I'm pretty sure that if it's because I think it inflates, right? Because it goes in, they put it in, and then it inflates.
I don't know. I have no experience.
And if it's inflated, I believe you could completely ruin your urethra.
Secondly, we need an alternative. And here's my suggestion.
The year 2021.
Yeah, I don't know if this is actually how astronauts work, but don't they have
Like astronauts themselves.
don't they have a funnel attached to a tube, and they just stick the funnel on their junk, and that's vacuum,
I have
and they
no
pee
idea.
into that
Sucks it out.
because you can't pee in zero gravity, because it's gonna go everywhere. So you got to put something on it, right? That's what they do, right? They don't wear the catheters.
I have no idea.
So if it's good enough for astronauts, it's good enough for us here, on dirt. We should get. You go to the hospital, they're like, you're gonna be in a coma. It's like if you ever broke your arm, you have to take the shower bags with
yeah.
yeah. You just it's got a sealer on there. It's a big bag thing that just zip tie it to your dick, and then it's got a slow vacuum going so that it doesn't reverse it on. It's all going down. What's up?
I'm just going to say, if we make this technology generally available to the public, it's not going to be used for what you think it's going to be used for, what you intend it to be used for.
It's loose. It's not tight.
Well, I mean,
Look, if we're going forward with this business idea, we can have how there's condoms that are magnum size and some that are super big. They all have big names, but they're different sizes. We'll just, we'll offer a variety of sizes and say, don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah.
See, I feel
God
like
will
we've-
recognize his own.
I
Let's
feel
just
like
go.
we've stumbled onto the better idea, which is we make our own line of condoms, and the smallest one is called Giant.
This is already a thing.
Yeah, I think they do that, right?
Well, no, I mean, most of the condoms I bought, it's like, yeah, they start at medium. I don't think there's any smalls, but it's like, yeah, you're just like a guy. just a guy. You're gonna have sex. And those are the
Guy
ones you can.
size.
Those are the ones that are never sold out.
It goes guy, demigod, titan.
That's why we have so many unintended pregnancies, is because no one's buying the medium ones. Everyone's buying the big, and the magnum ones.
People with small dicks are buying too big of condoms. There's not enough tension. But look,
Oh,
the
there's
condom
tension, all right.
company's fault that we have unintended pregnancies.
Look.
It's their fault.
I know my plan is kind of only for men, right? Women might need like a whole diaper apparatus. I don't know. But it's got to be better than sticking something up your fucking urethra.
Yeah.
Like, I can't. Look, I know.
Here's the thing, we've talked on this podcast. There are people who just do that for fun.
I know. That's
Which
what I was
is
about to
insane.
say. I was like, I know some people are into that. You do whatever. I like my urethra, the raw is not the word I want to describe my urethra ever.
Uninflated?
Irritated, raw, scraping. These are all
Jesus,
words
stop.
that are not want to be associated with my urethra. So just go on the outside with a vacuum sealed tube bag. Call me, Shark Tank.
Yeah, Mark Cuban. Wait, that's my dick bag.
Stop wasting your money on your failed basketball franchise. It's never going to pan out.
What if you get your dick blown off by something though? Like, what if it's just
Then you don't
Trauma.
care about your dick. You throw in your catheter. But if I have a full functioning member, I'm gonna fucking put it in the members only tube. Like,
I don't like condoms the members only do.
Mark will help us come up with a better name and money.
I'm going to assume we're done talking about Garvey Sr. At this point, are we done? Is there any other thoughts?
this is the greatest segue ever? into Episode 4.
How did we go to urethra or from urethras? Okay, yeah.
We were pretty much riding urethras that whole time, I feel like.
No. How do we go from urethras?
Oh, how do we go from that?
You just
now
yank it out.
to?
Let's yank ourselves out into the next episode. Well, that
I mean,
didn't
that's kind of
sound
what I
right.
felt like what they did with their relationship. They were all of a sudden just like, "Fuck it, we're toxic."
God.
Yeah, I had some problems with how that felt really rushed and like.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe it's just clearly I've had like a lot of misreads on this show. But to me, it's like the things they were arguing about and like the things that finally came out that they had supposedly been building up weren't the things that I thought were the things that were being built up. Mm-hmm. And it's been a while since I saw the episode. I can't remember specifically what. I just remember leaving the episode being like, that's not what I pictured they'd be mad about. Like,
Nora was mad, apparently, that Garvey didn't stop her from giving away Lily. Garvey was mad because he didn't get a say in it, and that he can't tell Nora that he's seeing people because last time he confided his crazy in her, she left. And Nora's also mad about the Bible. And
Also, that Garvey wants to have a baby.
Yeah.
After not stopping her from giving away Lily.
Yes. And Garvey's mad about Nora being mad about the Bible. That was my summary.
Yeah.
That was very good.
it's good. Yeah. And I felt like really the only thing that I felt like maybe two things was like, I mean, obviously talking about the Bible thing and then the not telling her he's seeing people because last time she left were both things I'm like, yeah, you talk about that. Everything else I'm like, this is all shit that happened off screen. As an audience member, I feel like we can do this scene with stuff we've seen, like, and have it work better. I don't know.
Well, the Garvey calling out Nora for like wanting to be a victim is something that they like
Already
hadn't.
hashed out almost.
Did they?
I thought they did. Or at least the show did. I don't know if they.
Yeah, I don't
did.
think they have hashed it out.
okay.
It's something that we've had with Nora for a while. Well,
I feel like it's just been established with Nora. She hasn't resolved it. So
For
it
sure.
like it would make sense for the show to call it out, but not so much for Garvey to call it out in that moment. if that makes sense. Just less so than the other things, I guess.
I think so. I think it's this is another one of those things too, like in talking about this and in thinking about the production of this last season, where it was like at the end of last season, HBO was like, I think we're done, and they're like, give us 8 more episodes, please. And it's like, I think there's some of those things that you can lay at the foot of this, like there are. I think when we get to the end of the show, we'll be able to say they decided this is the story they wanted to tell, and there were sacrifices and compromises they had to make along the way to get here. And I don't know. I don't think I can say that that they're all worth it, because I think this is like what you guys are talking about is like one of the glaring points of this season and maybe the show overall, of like just pushing something in a direction without letting it go there itself. But yeah,
and I don't know exactly where they're going, but to me it feels
Yeah.
like they still could have got there and make it work with what we've seen, the materials we had to work with.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyways, let's come back to this in a minute. Let's talk about kind of because they go on a journey together and then they go on very separate journeys once they reach Australia. So let's talk about those real quick and then kind of come back to this at the end. So we have Nora's kind of like there. I do think there are like a couple little things in this episode that like maybe don't build in the way that they should, but are kind of like these markers that stuff is kind of weird. And I think the first one comes at the airport when they're going through security and Nora asks about going through the world traveler.
Frequent flyers.
Yeah, whatever the fuck. The one where
They have a metal detector that
You
doesn't
can
fucking
smuggle
work
shit.
because she doesn't take off her necklace that's metal.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, do I usually take off my earrings when I go through the metal detector? I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. Anyways, but the idea that she's smuggling $20,000 and they take 10,000 out, and then Kevin's like, "Why didn't you give me 10,000?" And it's like, and then we get kind of what Kevin and Nora do, I think, when things are hard, which is just have fucking sex somewhere, like
In a dirty bathroom with no fucking foreplay. That pissed me off.
I mean, here's the thing. Ripping $20,000 that's been duct taped to your lover is, in some cases, considered by some people foreplay, I would think.
I mean, and we've learned that Nora like doesn't process normal human emotions with the same triggers that the rest of us do.
I was just, like, I thought it was her manipulating him into let's not talk about this, and
Well,
then
I
it
think
it
segued
is.
into let's. They were talking about it on the plane, though.
Yeah. Well, but I think you're exactly right. I think that it is like this. It's a way in their relationship, I feel like, that they can both regain some sense of power in the situation or something. You know what I mean? Which I think is like. I think if you look at it, could be pointed out as one of the toxic traits of that relationship. And the fact that happens and then they talk about the stuff afterwards anyways is just, I don't know. They're weird. They're weird. I don't know. Maybe there are people that are like, I'm sure there are people that are like this.
Maybe it was like, instead of trying to deflect because she knew that Garvey would still want to talk about it, it was, let's get your happy hormones going and then you won't be mad at me.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because nobody does that in real life.
Never.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, she's totally pregnant, right? Like, that's where it's going. Because that's why they were on the baby changing tail. That's in the shot.
Oh, yeah.
And she's trying to disappear, and now that's going to be a problem because and they took the blood test, and he's like, we're testing for pregnancy. So that felt pretty on the nose too. Watch as I'm wrong, and it's a Cersei Lannister situation where it's like, there's a baby? What? But yeah, I'm interested to see if that baby comes into play. There was something else about Nora, I can't remember. Yeah. Nora kind of sucks. Nora went from being like very empathetic, but really damaged, to like the second half of season 2 onward being like, holy shit, Nora. chill.
Yeah, I definitely I connect a lot less with Nora. Fuck.
Oh, that's
Goddamn.
how this ends. They merged into.
Nora. Yeah, yeah, they become Nori. Yeah, no, I think, but I do think that comes as the show starts to explore more unanswerable questions with her character, and so it's hard for me to like know if that's really good writing or poor writing, or you know what I mean. I guess I can't decide where I fall on that, but it is hard to watch.
Like it's a reasonable, like not contrast or foil exactly to, like she's dealing with unknowns and she's just like getting more and more toxic to the people around her, and that's how she's quote unquote dealing with it, versus the people going the religion route. So like not exactly a contrast because they're both not ideal ways of handling trauma, but something along those lines.
Yeah. When I think, and if you want to look at it as like a very crude, like her in contrast to these other people, is this very crude, idea of someone seeking answers with science and versus someone seeking answers with religion. Like, I don't know. We can talk about that a little more later, kind of as we see more of both of those sides, whether that holds up. But yeah, I can totally see that as being like something that they were tossing around and discussing for sure. But yeah, so what do you guys have any thoughts on the on that whole like process? I guess mainly like I think kind of the big things you come up with at the end of this is this question they ask about killing a baby to cure cancer. Which we've gotten this guy in the previous episode who lit himself on fire because he was rejected because he said no, he wouldn't kill the baby. And then we have in this episode, Nora very like reasonably, and logically going about this and saying like, yeah, I'd nod to kill this baby or whatever. And then being like, yeah, we're not going to go any further. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that or...
I think it was the way she answered. Like
Okay.
She asked some questions, but then she was like, yeah, I'll fucking kill the baby. Who cares? A kind of attitude. Whereas I'm sure the other guy like suffered over this question and was like, no, I can't. And for whatever reason, they rejected him for not necessarily his answer, but how he delivered it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's my guess anyway.
I mean, I think you're right. I think another thing it could be is that they were both lying, maybe. And they could tell
maybe they were lying. That's why they had the baseline heart rate in the box, so they could tell.
It's a good, yeah, I like that idea. I actually hadn't thought about that idea.
Although, how were they taking her heart rate? She didn't have like a monitor on. She just like opened the coffin box, was like, your heart rate is very steady.
The dude put things on her chest.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I missed that.
Before she got in the box.
Because she was like, I don't want to trust. It's like, I'm a doctor.
Yeah, and we're in a warehouse in the middle of Australia.
You don't trust warehouse doctors? You don't trust science.
Real science happens out here in the streets.
Science the government isn't ready to accept yet.
We also get the revelation that Marklin Baker has indeed left at this point. He is for real gone instead of fake
Unless
gone.
he's faking it again.
Unless he's faking it
Double
again.
fake. He set up this whole thing. This is all Marklin Baker's escape attempt.
God, if this is the pilot for his new prank show, I am in. I will watch every episode. This commitment to production is just amazing. But yeah, so we have. I'm trying to remember if there's any other like
The people hand her a
notable
baby
tests. Right?
at
Oh
the bus
yes.
stop.
Yeah.
Isn't that a scam tactic? Like you hand someone. This is just like.
Where are the scammers getting babies?
Well, it's like a family of people of like.
Hippies. Road warriors.
The stereotype is gypsies, but like there's like a family and they'll be like hand you this baby and then rob you because you can't drop the baby. But I don't know if that's like an actual thing.
I mean, you can put down a baby pretty safely.
I don't
That's
know.
actually an urban myth. You can't.
Well, fuck.
What if you toss the baby back?
Yeah, but if you're a good person, you're not going to be tossing babies.
If you throw it to the person, though, it's their fault for not catching.
Yeah, at what
You've
point
been
in the arc?
absolved of all responsibility right there.
If you've watched enough football, you know you're not going to play Tom Brady if he has it right here to the hands and they drop it.
Yeah, I guess at what point in the arc is the baby no longer your responsibility?
It's like goaltending. If it's on the way down,
It's on the way down. I was wondering if it has to be in proximity to a person as it's approaching like the ground. Like
yeah, God has pretty strict rules about that when you get to heaven.
it's like incomplete. Intentional grounding. That's on you.
Oh my God! What if God is just a wrath when you get to heaven? Oh my God!
Are you serious?
And you watch your life together. He's just blowing his whistle every time you fuck up.
You only have one challenge flag.
Oh man, I gotta think about what I'm using my challenge flag on.
Do I use that on my teen years or wait until I started drinking? I don't know. Oh God. Okay.
Okay, real fast. I just feel like I have to clarify. Not all like homeless people in Europe are gypsies, and it is a harmful stereotype
Yes,
to say that they
absolutely.
are. Okay,
Absolutely.
just want to clear the air there.
Yeah.
They're good people. Never met a gypsy, but they're great people.
I mean, Zach Condon went and learned how to make music from them, and he's in the band Beirut, and they're
Yeah.
fun. So
So yeah, I guess the question is whether that was actually a test or not by them, or from someone else, or from God, the referee in the sky.
the old zebra, the almighty zebra.
Zebras. Oh man. But then Kevin's doing stuff during that whole thing,
Yeah.
and I was waiting to hear about them pancakes, and got interrupted.
Yes. I'm going to be honest. Reading through your summary and reading so much about pancakes, I had forgotten about the. I didn't really remember
Man,
the pancakes.
I like kind of want a VPN with Australian TV or something like.
So you watch G'day.
Yeah, like I'm like, man, you guys
G'day,
are so
Australia.
charming.
Yeah,
And
next time you're up at 4 a.m, you can watch some delightful afternoon
afternoon.
talk shoes from.
I think it's good I'm not in Australia because I believe anything they were trying to sell me. Like these pancakes can get. I can't do an Australian accent. That was all horrible. I gotta get in a crikey. These
you go.
pancakes can wallop your gossip.
Gossip is actually Australian slang for rectum. So those pancakes are just
Really raw your urethra. That's good over here.
everything's opposite here. You know how it goes.
Except on opposite day, it's back to normal.
We call it American Day.
But
Fucking nightmare of a country we've imagined.
but then we just like learned that Kevin hasn't actually recovered from anything, and he's seen people, and Lori still sucks. Like, oh yeah, the crazy guy, stay in the room with him and tell him
that you're who he says you
tell him
are.
you're a dead person.
Don't call the police and get some intervention.
Yeah, no, that's fucked up. Yeah, that.
Can you imagine being called by some woman from America, being like, "Hey, my husband's the crazy guy who's chasing you. Can you just call him to a room to be in private? You know, tell him you're a dead person and see what happens."
Yeah.
Okay, the sign she was holding in the window, though, was a verse or a chapter in the Quran about like end times and destruction, and I went and looked it up. So why was she holding that in the window?
Here's the thing.
Pancakes are also in the Quran. It's kind of a metaphor, and she was very passionate about it.
Well, I was just going to say, I wonder that I don't want this to be offensive. I'm legitimately asking this. You know, people just hold up John 3:16 at football games. Are there verses like that in other,
cricket
like from
games.
other religions? Yeah, exactly. They're like, yeah, if you're at a soccer game in the right place, you'll just see like a thing from the Bhagavad Gita that's like, you know, lay down your weapons of war or something. I don't know. Like, I wonder.
I have no idea.
Culturally, I have no way to answer that question, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have any experience enough
Yeah.
for that.
Or could his mind have created a sign? Could Kevin's
That's
mind
true.
have created a
I
sign?
could have just said pancakes fucking rock, and
But it calls up a specific Quran reference.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's. I think that's probably less likely. But
Maybe he was so excited about Bible 2.0 that he went and read all the other religious texts. And that's why it was floating around in his brain.
I need to be able to make a good, educated ranking of religious texts.
he did read all of Bible too, on the way to Australia.
Yeah.
So it's probably a pretty good read.
Yeah.
Oh, that's something I did want to talk about. Which I mean, it will kind of bring up the ending again, but like my read on the situation, I want to hear what you guys thought. Is like Kevin might be just interested in keeping that around because he's having a hard time processing everything that happened, and it's like almost like going back in a journal and like reprocessing everything again, more so than that he thinks he might be the Messiah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a bit of both. I don't know.
I mean, I don't get the feeling that Kevin is stoked about being the Messiah to any group of people, especially his friends. I mean, it's just, I don't know. But
Man, with
yeah, it could
how
be,
good of a cop he is, I worry about his qualifications as a Messiah.
it's like, listen, if this doesn't pan out in the next couple of years, then at least I can fall back on this Messiah thing.
Cults do seem to be in, so
I do, certainly.
Christ came into my dry cleaning service and stole someone's shirts.
Oh, yeah. Good times. Look how far we've come. So, yeah, the...
That's just an apocryphal story.
that didn't make the cut.
Yeah.
Like newspaper clippings of Garvey are like part of the Apocrypha.
Maybe that's why Garvey
Future
Sr. was...
Council of Nicaea is just going to have all of his like Facebook posts and stuff, just trying to decide what actually gets included.
Nicaea cancels the Christ. Yeah, maybe that's why Garvey Sr. was so mad, is he's like, you put the fucking dry cleaner in here?
but not the pool party.
Not the pool party. I was man of the year. But yeah, I guess I don't know if I have a ton of specific things to talk about with this episode. I feel like this episode for Kevin, it feels like it's just kind of like reintroducing something that we thought was kind of like that from the beginning of the season we were kind of led to believe was taken care of, or like a part of the past. And then I don't know, the stuff with Nora, it's still I think there's still kind of a lot of questions to answer there. Yeah, any other thoughts on this episode? I know this has kind of been a brief discussion on that, but
Yeah, I don't really know what I'm supposed to feel at the end of this. Like when we finished watching it, I was telling Gwen, like, I feel like this show is just, it's really hard to watch because like there's a lot of stuff that is not easily, I mean, this sounds lazy, but like they're not just like laying things out for me to just, this is how you should feel about this.
right.
And this episode specifically, good or bad, I don't know yet. I came away from it like, am I cheering for Nora? Like, am I supposed to feel bad for Nora right now? Do I feel bad for Kevin? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel bad because of the relationship that is ended, and like that was something that I was cheering for before. But it just feels like there's not like this familiar feeling that you have when like a relationship that you've kind of like grown with and seen develop, it breaks apart. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I don't know how to feel about any of this right now.
Yeah.
And there's not the same sort of like watching episode 3 where there's all these more like bigger thoughts and like themes and stuff that I can dig into. This episode didn't really feel like it had that as much. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because in a shortened season, I'm wondering like what's coming afterwards that is going to make this important, and why like this was the content that was created, because we only have 8 episodes. So why was this chosen to be shown?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's honestly like remembering that we're halfway through the season and like knowing what's to come, I'm like, oh yeah, there's like a whole lot and also not much left, you know. And so it is interesting. I think that I'm sure we'll be. I will say I think at the end of the season we'll be revisiting some of the thoughts we've had on this episode, and I think by the end maybe we'll be able to say whether this episode serves the ending or not. But yeah, I don't know. Any other final thoughts, Tyler, Gwen, anything? Okay.
It does feel like we've had one instance where we've seen presumably Nora of the future, old Nora, and Kevin's name is brought up, and I can't remember exactly what she says, but it was not a positive interaction. So, like, whatever is happening between now and then is going. I'm assuming there's going to be some really major stuff that goes down.
Sure, definitely. But yeah, we'll be back. At some point. I'm gonna stop saying
In
next
theory.
week just in case. Yeah. Next episode we release will be on episodes 5 and 6 of season 3 of The Leftovers. Like I said, very close. Only 4 more episodes of show to watch before we are at the end. So yeah, we'll discuss that when we get there. But if you want to reach out to us about The Leftovers at all, you can email us at rewatchersonthepod@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram, Twitter at rewatcherspod. We're going to take a brief break and be back with some recommendations for you. See you on the other side. Welcome to the recommendation section of the podcast, where I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about. It's been a while since we've talked about some of these other things that we've been watching and playing and listening to. Tyler, why don't you start us off this week? What did you have for us?
I have been on like a desire for having something Lovecraftian Eldritch horror in my life. With that, still have not reading any. At some point, I plan to. So I got on this Lovecraft subreddit and just was looking at that weird place. And someone recommended the movie Dagon. And so I rented Dagon. And I watched the trailer first. I'm like, oh, this looks like some B-movie quality stuff, but I'm down for it. And it was. The budget was, from my understanding of the production, I didn't look too much into it. It was very in production hell for a while, and then they didn't get Hollywood funding, so then they got like Spanish funding, I think. Anyway, the actors aren't great, but it is part of the movie's charm. And I actually really liked the story. I thought that the story was pretty much what I wanted. Gets really weird. It's good kind of B horror flick with like a good existential twist, I guess, at the end. And it's loosely based off of Isle over Innsmouth, I think. Is that what it's called? The title of that Lovecraft?
Isle at Innsmouth, yeah.
Isle of Innsmouth. And I looked at the summary of that story, and there's quite a few changes. It's definitely a different era, and from what I read, at least, I liked the changes. A lot of the changes that they made is interesting. There's like not a lot of great special effects in this. Some of them are good, some of them not so great. There's one where someone gets their face peeled off. Oh my hell. Oh, that was great. So yeah, I recommend Dagon if that's like your thing. I can't, like, it's not like a broad recommendation. If you're interested in either B movie horror or like Lovecraft at all, I think that's a good movie to watch.
Cool.
Which then led me to replaying Bloodborne, and I liked playing Bloodborne a lot more this time because I feel like I didn't expect the Lovecraftian stuff going into it the first time. I wanted more like Vampire Hunter Transylvania shit, and then got aliens. But like, yeah, and then this time I was like, okay, there's a lot of lore here that I really don't understand, so I then spent a lot of time on YouTube having people explain it to me who understood it. And that story is cool as fuck. It is awesome. I really wish there were like better structured stories in that universe. But that's my recommendation. Play Bloodborne, watch stuff about it, actually learn the story because it's really cool. Then I watched Midsummer finally for the first time, and I liked it.
Did you watch the director's cut or the
Normal.
cut?
I think the normal theatrical cut. Whatever's Where did I watch it? Amazon? Whatever's
on
the
Amazon,
whatever
yeah.
the Prime on Amazon
Okay,
one is.
I think it's probably.
Is the director's cut worth watching after you've seen the regular cut?
I have not seen it. I am
Okay.
curious. I have heard the things I have read about the director's cut fix, I think, my biggest problem with that movie, just because it develops some of the relationships there more, primarily the relationship that's kind of central to that movie as far as her and her boyfriend. So I don't know, but I can't say with any. That's just the thing I've heard. I have not been in a place where I'm like, yes, I want to watch a longer. I want to watch a version of Midsummer that's 35 to 40 minutes longer than the original.
I mean, I'm going to be honest, and I think this is just the byproduct of being late to the party. It was less disturbing than I thought it was going to be. When everyone talked about it, I was expecting. I mean, I just got done playing Bloodborne, and like was kind of worn down by that a bit with just the amount of gore and torture and screaming and everything. So I was expecting a lot more hard to watch. That might sound really bad, but like I was going in with way heavier expectations on like the psychedelic drug level because I heard about the drugs being involved and like all that stuff. And so I walked away from being like, that wasn't really a horror or a slasher or anything. It felt just like a fucked up drama. And I enjoyed it. I mean, my takeaway from it that it's a commentary on grief and religion. I don't know if that's everyone else's take on it. It felt more like, and very much about the predatory nature of religion for people in grief and how that then manifests and how I don't want to spoil it. Sorry, I shouldn't say. Just how the movie ends feels very much like, I don't know, that cemented that take, at least for me, of like, oh, this is what that's trying to talk about. I don't know, maybe it's different for everyone else, but anyway.
Have you watched Hereditary?
I know, and I'm never going to because I already have trouble sleeping at night in my life.
Okay.
Any like horror
we talk about this. But
any horror that takes place in a house, I'm like, I have a hard time dealing with. Although Babadook was really good.
And also, we should watch House at some point. The Japanese.
I was going to watch this last year, but I never got to it.
We should watch that this year, actually.
Is that the trailer you sent me?
Yeah.
That actually looks fantastic.
Okay.
And then, I played the Ninja Gaiden remaster, and Ninja Gaiden is one of my favorite. Ninja Gaiden came out originally on like the NES on like a 2D platform that's hard as hell, and then they did some new reboot ones on the original Xbox back in 2003. I don't remember when that was. And it's really fucking good. Unfortunately, they made like 7 versions of it, and some versions are better than others, and they remastered the worst versions of all of them, unfortunately. So it's a hesitant thing. Like, it's hard to get. It's hard to play unless if you have Xbox Game Pass, you can play number 2, the original version of number 2, I think, on Xbox, but not on PC Xbox Game Pass.
Sure. So
it's like, I don't have an Xbox. Otherwise, that's how I would have done it because 2 is my favorite one anyway. But yeah, it's a great action game. The original had the original 1 and 2 had my favorite like action controls, fluidity, and just combat of any action slasher I've ever played. Sigma doesn't quite recapture that, especially in 2 because 2 there's a whole dismemberment system, and like that went into the gameplay, and they like scrapped it a bit. They cut it back. Japan's weird, man. Like, the things they'll like push on you, and then they'll be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! We got to edit out that butt crack." Especially Sony. So yeah, it's a tentative. If you're really hankering for it, get it. I'm replaying my least favorite Zelda game of all time again in Skyward Sword.
Are you really? I was wondering if you were.
Because my biggest grief with that game is just the motion controls not fucking working. Trying to stab was miserable in that game. I remember just fuming and just cussing out my TV as I'm just like jerking off my TV trying to stab the fucking spider. And yeah, that is a miserable experience. And so like they're like, oh, they mapped you controls. Guess what these fuckers did?
I know what they did. I'm excited to hear this.
Oh my god. So I knew this was going to be a problem with like so much of the game is based around motion controls of the directions you're slashing, so they now have to map it to the stick. I'm like, okay, that's something you're going to have to live with. That's fine. That's the same camera that controls the stick that controls the camera. and you're moving around more than you're slashing things. So to do the solution, which is a good one by the way, is like, oh, you just hold down like the Z button and then it switches up between the two. Unfortunately, the default without pressing Z is to swing your sword. So now you're fucking holding down the Z button for 90% of the time you're running around this game, and like, oh, that's the worst decision ever. So like all the time I'm trying to switch the camera and he pulls out his sword. It's fucking stupid. And it's like my least favorite. Like that's definitely a game where it's like, oh, Nintendo's gimmickiness and unwillingness to compete on like a technological level as far as like performance and graphically really hurt this game. Like Twilight Princess, which was the one before, feels bigger and more dense and epic, and I feel like you can even have more enemies on screen at a time. I don't know, maybe it just feels that way because the enemies don't actually fucking attack you half the time. It's just they hold up their swords. And anyway, Skyward Sword sucks ass. That's the big message and takeaway. Did I do anything else? There's one more thing I did. I'm trying to remember what it was. No. I mean, I don't remember. I think that's all I did. Did I play anything else? I'm playing Dark Souls 3 again just because I finished Bloodborne. I'm like, you know what? I really like just pumping stats into shit and making builds and seeing how they might make my suffering a little less so as I go forward. So, yeah. Oh, I think, yeah, and I've talked about this before. I think it's not just the empathy thing of suffering of my like of these games. It's when my life is suffering, I'm lacking any power in my life to overcome hardship. And so when I actually progress in that game, I get that serotonin of, I am doing good. I am doing hard things, and I am getting past them.
It's better than starting a religion.
Well, I got something
And
to tell
good
you.
research. I was going to say good research for it. I would
The
assume.
Church of the Fire is something I'm planning on starting.
That sounds badass.
Come and rest at the bonfire.
All right, Justin, what did you have for us?
It's actually, that is one of my highest tattoo considerations is
a bonfire?
some sort of bonfire. Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
Okay, so there was a question asked on Reddit recently about, it was like, what you get trapped in the last video game that you played. What video game are you now trapped in for the rest of forever? And I had this moment of pure like terror, realizing that I would be trapped in the world of NBA 2K21 for the rest of forever. And it was at that moment that I decided to stop playing NBA 2K21.
Wow. That's the best fucking... That's amazing.
So it was free on Epic like a month ago, and I started playing it. I haven't played a basketball game in a long time, and I used to really enjoy sports games back before they probably always were just copy-paste games, but when I was younger, I didn't know that. But so
I don't think that's as true as it is now. I think there are definitely.
Yes.
I think back when we were younger, I don't think this is a nostalgia thing. Like there were meaningful iterations on a lot of this stuff, and I definitely feel like that's like. Anyways,
like, yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean
So growing up playing NFL Blitz and being able to just like fucking dumpster people after the whistle blows and tackle everybody on screen, like that shit was the best. So those are the sports games I grew up on, and I was like, yeah, I'll give NBA 2K21 a try. This sounds great. It's free. Why not? So I played it for like 90 hours over the course of a couple weeks because I could not quit until I won an NBA championship. And I was not going to sim to the playoffs to do that because my guy also needs to be MVP, and I also need to get I need to compete in the dunk contest, even though I'm not going to win. Like, I need to get my guy's stats all the way up to 90 or whatever it is. And so I put a bunch of time into this game, and Gwen can attest to what my experience was, but it's like inevitably every single night, the third quarter, fourth quarter come along, and like the rubber banding, that's a term that's used for like racing games where like no matter how far ahead you are, the CPU is going to catch up to you because game developers and psychologists and evil people think that you're going to have more fun if the game is closer. And this shit is in this game, and it's awful. It's so miserable. You can be up by 30 points, and then Donovan fucking Mitchell will go and take like 5 3-pointers in a row, and I've got his 3-point shooting up on the season at 72%, and he'll miss all 5 of them in a row.
Dude, why did you pick the Utah Jazz?
Dude,
You're setting yourself up for disappointment.
well, I did replace Mike Conley in the starting lineup.
Oh shit, controversial
Yeah, that was
take.
weird. Yeah. Rudy Gobert was injured for like half the season, and Derek Favors took his starting position. And Derek Favors is a 2K god. I'm just going to throw that out there. Like, he's incredible. Royce got traded away. I had Kawhi on my team too.
What
we
the
got
fuck?
him. Yeah, second season, so you can like influence the free trade or whatever it's called. Influence trades in the off season, and in between my rookie season and my second season, I sent Kawhi a text. Or he sent me a text.
Kawhi, we've had a lot of orchards here. We know how you like apples.
Yeah.
Kawhi, aren't you in Utah, bud?
So I had Kawhi and Carmelo Anthony on my team too, and I ended up reducing. I dropped Melo's minutes down to like 5 per game because he was absolute shit, and gave him all to Kawhi. But anyways, all of that said, I will not recommend NBA 2K21 or any NBA 2K game for that matter until they make all this stuff actually fun and enjoyable. And like inside all of this, like you hear stories about how like monetization is just awful in games like this, and how it's just pushing you to like whip out your credit card and swipe it in your card swiper that you have on your desktop to pay.
Yeah, why did you
Just
get one of
you
those,
got
Justin?
pros.
That's what. Yeah.
The Steam card swiper.
Ooh, I learned how to tap my credit card to pay for stuff. And then I felt old for not knowing.
That's probably coming in like the next generation of consoles is like an NFC chip reader in the controller. So the monetization is just god awful. It's bad. Don't play those games. They're garbage. At the very least, they need to have some competition in the market. Like EA can't have the only football game out there. 2K needs to have better basketball competition.
Dude, let me tell you about the idea I had while you were talking.
Tell
Here's
me all
another
about it.
Shark Tank idea, all right? We're talking about stats in basketball. Getting your stats, I was like, holy shit. A basketball RPG would be pretty dope. And then I'm like, a turn-based basketball RPG it might be something.
I'm pretty sure they're developing a Warhammer version of that right now. It's mobile only.
It's got to be kind of like
Interesting.
Final Fantasy VII, where there's like a kind of time meter
Yeah,
turn-based. And so, like, you have opportunities, like, use steal, and you have, like, a percentage chance of hitting it. And
Pass a ball.
But their dribbling
shoot from
skill will,
here.
like, offset your steal stat. And, like, oh, yeah, this is fucking gold mine. And it's got to be anime. Like, we just do it all anime. And
That sounds great. Speaking of anime, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is I ended up finishing Evangelion, which is something we talked about a while ago. And if you haven't watched Evangelion, you need to watch Evangelion because it is unlike anything I've ever experienced in animation. I think maybe I don't know. It's very unique. It has. Tyler's already talked a lot about it in his experience, and I think I echo a lot of what he's said about it. I have not taken the time to dig in as much as you have, like in all of like the religious symbolism and stuff afterwards. I think that for me personally, I'm interested in doing that, and I probably will. But even without getting into all of that, what the show had to say and like how I experienced it, and just my own thoughts on the matter was a really cool experience in and of itself. But there is a lot that you can do if you want to look for other resources to like inform you about the decisions that were made, about what it's trying to say, like the psychology and everything behind the story and everything. Yeah, there's a lot to go through with that. So.
did you end up watching End of Evangelion yet?
I haven't watched
Oh,
it
yeah, that
yet.
was just yesterday we talked about it. So, yeah, probably not.
Yeah, I need to watch that. That's the next thing. And then just real quick, one other thing that I wanted to mention. There's a new documentary on Netflix that is called This Is Pop, and I would definitely recommend that. At least
Oh, that was on
watch-
Netflix that you were talking about last night?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. At least watch the first 4 or 5 episodes of it. The last few are meh. Like, there's some pretty interesting things in it, but not nearly like the quality of those last few episodes is not nearly the same as the first few. You can tell that some of them were made a long time ago. Like, there's one episode that talks about going to music festivals and how amazing it is to be in a crowd of thousands of people experiencing your favorite artists and seeing everything live. And this was very clearly made before the pandemic because they don't even talk about any of that stuff. So a little out of touch with that episode, which is probably why it's one of the last ones in the lineup. But the first few are great. There's an episode talking about like Boyz II Men and boy bands, and there's an episode that focuses on auto-tune, and T-Pain is a central figure, and the Country Goes Pop or Pop Goes Country or whatever the episode is called is hosted by Orville Peck, and his like just seeing him on the screen and talking about these things like Dolly Parton and Shania Twain, like some really really cool stuff. And like I just love hearing about music industry stories, so it was definitely my cup of tea. The Britpop episode, which focuses on Oasis and Blur, was really good. That's probably one of my favorite episodes. I actually turned it on and tried to get Gwen to watch it while she was doing
I was
pizza
watching.
stuff yesterday. Yeah. Did you like it?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. The bass player from Blur is a cheese farmer in Great Britain now, and that's like one of like the final line in the episode is like they're talking about like what it's like, what they have him and the drummer from the Blur, like the two main guys that they have from those two bands. They don't get anybody from Oasis to interview or anything, but
Sounds about right.
yeah, they're talking about like, could they have been as successful today with the way social media is and like the death of the entire like music magazine like media industry. Like there's no such thing as like what am I trying to say, like a music.
Like if your first single isn't a hit, then your career is done. Is what he
Yeah,
said.
that, and there's not people out like going to bars trying to find like the next artist, like people,
tastemaker kind of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Like you don't have magazines writing articles about like local musicians as much as it was back then, and finding somebody like the Blur or whatever, like that just doesn't happen anymore. So they're talking about that, and like one of the last lines in the episode of the bass player is like, "What do you do if you're a bass player in a rock band, a drunk bass player in a rock band that just wants to make music?" He's like, how do you find success today? And he's like, I don't know. I'm a cheesemaker now. So like the delivery is a lot better than what I'm doing now. But yeah, check it out. Good times. Definitely worth the watch.
Cool. Yeah, I want to check that out for sure. Just like in the little that you told me about it yesterday. That sounds really interesting. Okay, I have a few things I want to recommend real quick. The first thing I'm going to get out of the way real quick is I talked about this to all of you last night, but Pig, the new Nicolas Cage movie, is so good. It's maybe like one of the best movies I've seen in a really long time. And I don't know, like I'm on the fence about like probably don't watch the trailer. Even just go fucking see this movie, because I think that there are people who will love this movie that would be turned off by the trailer, because it looks like it looks like it's going to be a very cliche movie, like action movie for what is happening in action movies right now, and it is not that. And it's Nicolas Cage. It's one of those movies that you watch and you're like, wow, Nicolas Cage actually is very good at what he does. He's not just, I don't know. He was in that Willy's Wonderland movie that I watched about half an hour of, and I was like, I am not even going to make it through this. I'm not going to be able to do it. But yeah, fantastic movie. I don't have a whole lot else to say about it. Just like, if you're interested in seeing something, it's like definitely put it on your list. It's fantastic, and maybe we'll talk about it more later at some point. I don't know, but
Is it streaming anywhere?
Do you know
Is
what?
it-
I don't think it is.
Okay.
I think it's one of the first movies of this kind of that is just in theaters right now. It's the type of, and it sucks because it feels like the type of movie that would really benefit from a same day on demand release. So I'm hoping in the next couple weeks, maybe it'll be something that'll be, become available that way. But yeah, anyways, fantastic movie. Speaking of streaming, huge news. Garth Marenghi's Dark Place is now streaming on Amazon Prime. All 6 episodes. Fucking go watch Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. It's like the greatest show ever made, I think.
Have you seen this, Justin?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
There's like part of me that's like,
Call
go
me
watch
over.
it.
I'll watch the first
I know,
2 episodes.
Seriously, tell me when you're doing this.
Okay.
Because I might drive down from Salt Lake to watch these episodes today. I mean, my experience with this, my original experience is just watching this. I have a lot of videos and specifically early YouTube stuff that is like irrevocably connected to Tyler McKinley's parents' kitchen because and also just like LimeWired stand-up comedy sets that people listen to. Anyways, Garth Marenghi's Dark Place fucking rules. It's
Have you watched it again recently?
I watched the first 2 episodes before I came over here today.
Oh man.
So, it's wonderful. It's a British comedy that basically the framing device is that there's a Stephen King type writer who made a TV show in the 90s that the network was then like, we're not putting this on TV. And now 15 years later, they're like creatively at a loss for what to do. So they dig up this old TV show, and there are bits where the episode will just cut to these behind the scenes interviews that he has, directed recently. And it's just amazing. I mean, it is like, if you're a fan of like Edgar Wright, I mean, there's so many jokes in just the production and editing of this show, let alone the fucking performances. I mean, why did I just forget his name? Oh, Richard Ayoade and Matt Berry are in it, who, if you've seen IT Crowd, they are fantastic. But anyways, the show is really wonderful. It's fucking insane. Go watch it. The other thing is there's a new show. It's airing on the CW for some reason. I don't know why. But it is also on HBO Max. It's called Wellington Paranormal, and it is a spinoff from What We Do in the Shadows, the movie. And it is about, there are like 2 cops in that movie that show up a couple times, and it is an entire show centered around them and the secret undercover paranormal unit of the Wellington, New Zealand Police Department. And it's, if you're in for that type of, like the type of humor from What We Do in the Shadows, it is that. And it's really funny. The episodes are like 20 minutes long. It's great. I think there are only 3 episodes out right now, but it's fantastic. Yeah. But yeah, those are my recommendations for the week. Just some stuff to watch. Gwen, what did you have for us?
Well, I told you guys last night I've been playing a shit ton of Terraforming Mars. Like, it doesn't take a lot for me to start having Tetris Effect dreams about anything, but I've been having so many Tetris Effect Terraforming Mars dreams that it's like, it's disrupting my sleep in a bad way. But I love it. It's great. It's just the board game put in the computer, in the softwares. So you have like, there are a bunch of corporations basically that are trying to terraform Mars. Each turn is a generation. And I've mostly been playing just the solo version because I think I've played 4 online games and just gotten my ass handed to me. Everyone was very nice. They were very pleasant to talk to.
Here's your ass.
Basically.
Would you like butter on your ass?
But like, I've been proud when I've been getting a score that's like above 70, and they're like, up to 100 consistently, 120. I'm like, fuck, I can't do this. So yeah, I've been playing mostly solo, but yeah, there's just like, you get a corporation that have different bonuses, and so you draw cards and buy different actions, and I don't know. I think based on Justin's reaction to the game, it's not that great mechanically, but I like it. Yeah, I've got a couple complaints though. One is that it doesn't track your wins and losses or your stats at all. So I've just been doing it on an Excel spreadsheet.
I was gonna be like with you for a second, but this is the world I want to live in.
This is the most Gwen thing I've ever heard.
I want to know.
This whole bit is amazing. Like this, if you want to know Gwen Hammer, everything was right there for you.
Everything's just like all lowercase. I don't even have like any formulas.
You're not
set
doing
up
conditional
to
formatting or anything. Like,
fucking typing it in.
all my low scores are red.
Occasionally, I'll put a comment like "sucks to suck." I was drunk for this one. So there's that complaint. But then also there's not an AI that I can practice with. So like a lot of the corporations I won't practice with on the solo version because their bonuses are geared towards multiplayer and how that game is played. So that's my other complaint. But other than that, I really like it and I'm probably going to play it.
I mean, this might be a stupid question, but the fact that you want to know like your wins, losses and stuff, is there like a ranked mode and like a casual online mode?
There's like I don't think so. There's like
There's like
karma, and you can have like a score of 5 or 0 to 5, but that's based on whether you leave games or not.
Oh. Yeah, I want you to go in like these like video game communities that are totally wholesome, online communities, and just bring like first person
Where's
shooter.
my stat tracking?
Yeah, like there's a toxicity from like multiplayer online games like Overwatch and getting beat by these nice people like fucking hacks.
Well, here's the thing. I was playing against this
You
one.
got terraforming bots on.
I assume guy, and I typed in like, damn, you're fast. And it bleeped out my damn. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I'm not allowed to swear in the chat.
There's ways around that, Gwen. We can teach you.
Are we on a Christian server, Gwen?
The guy was
Caps
very
lock
nice.
button and use space bar in between every letter that you type.
Okay, I know. Okay.
You also
now
got
I
to
know.
learn all of the alternate spellings of swear words.
Yeah,
I was just
and
like, I
curses.
was trying to compliment him, and it bleeped me out, and I was a little like, I don't know how to be online, I guess. But he told me he was so fast because he's played over 500 games, and I was like, oh,
This kid is 12 years old and just won the science fair, probably.
probably. But that's another thing about the online game is that it's like when you create a game, you choose a length, and every player has, so like if you choose an hour, you have an hour total to play all your turns, and there's a timer counting down when it's your turn, and I'm going, oh shit, I the timer's going, and like one time ran out of time and it just booted the game, and it was
Oh,
like,
wow.
you ran out of time. So I can't think that fast. I have to take time to think what I'm doing. Anyways, enough about Terraforming Mars.
I'm expecting far more about Terraforming Mars in the coming weeks.
Yeah,
We want to see your Excel spreadsheets.
just
We
basically
want to see
it's-
trends in your data. We want graphs.
Yeah, we'll be posting Gwen's Excel spreadsheet of Terraforming Mars every week as the album artwork for the podcast.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I'll send it to you guys. I finished A Memory Called Empire by Arkady. Shoot, I forgot his name. Arkady someone. Premise is space opera, but it's like not a very space opera-y at all. There's an ambassador who lives on a space station, and she goes to be an ambassador to this massive space empire. And she's like very in love with their culture. And the stationers have these things that they put in the back of their heads that like carry on their predecessors in their careers' memories. So like if I were a pilot, when a previous pilot died, I get their imago machine, have them in my head to have like all of their expertise and knowledge of their entire career, and also like the people stretching back in time who all had these devices. Anyway, so they have this technology, and then the Empire is like very averse to anything that approaches neurological interventions. And so you'd think that the book was exploring personhood and like Ship of Theseus shit. And the second one is a little bit, but it just went in a completely different direction and was exploring, okay, if this technology comes to the Empire, how does it affect succession and politics? It's just, I'm making it sound so boring. It was really interesting. Like the prose was really amazing and flowery, like purposely written in a way that's difficult to connect with so that it made you feel like an outsider to this culture, which I appreciated as a form of this art. So yeah.
What's the name of that one more time?
A Memory Called Empire.
Memory Called Empire.
And then the second one is a Desolation Called Peace. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Cool.
It's good. And it's just apology. I finished The Crown. I don't really have anything extra to say about it other than I felt very dirty watching it again. And they were very hard on Prince Charles and the whole Diana thing. And I don't know if that's fair or not. I have no idea.
I mean, I understand. I don't have enough experience to say, so I shouldn't say anything. It seemed like a really fucked up situation all around.
Like, going into it, everything I knew about it, like, I very solidly blamed Charles. But watching the show, I was like, oh, that, like they demonized him and gave him, like, reasons why he's being a dickhead. But, like Diana was very much, like, the damsel in distress in this terrible situation. The way that they wrote the behind-the-scenes stuff that I don't know that anyone actually knows happened or not. It's just they filled it out headlines and from the one book about Diana where she gave interviews. But yeah. Felt dirty but couldn't stop watching it. Okay, so my favorite series where people are terrible, revenge is terrible, war is terrible. I finished Red Country where colonization is terrible, but friendship and love are redemptive. So it was good.
Spicy takes.
Yeah. Premise of that one is there's like these pillagers, ravagers who like kidnap two kids, and the older sister and her stepfather figure go into the frontier to find them. And we got 2 redemption arcs for previous characters that I didn't expect at all, or like got me in the squishy, vulnerable parts of my heart. So I liked it a lot. And now I'm on to Hatred, which is watching the next generation repeat and iterate on your mistakes is terrible. And it's just this quote unquote fantasy world. It's not even really fantasy because like even the wizard character who we had earlier in the series, this other character runs into him and is like, where's your staff? And the wizard's like, it's out of fashion. No one uses magic anymore. Like it's all about industry now. And there's like barely any magic. Anyways, this quote unquote fantasy world hitting the industrial age and unfettered capitalism and work riots, that sort of thing. It's a good time. Yeah, cool. That's oh yes, and I'm not done with it yet, but I have like 4 hours left out of 20, and I'm so sad that it's going to end. Like, I dropped everything else to read these books because I love them so much, and they're going to end, and I'm going to be so sad.
So sorry.
Yeah.
Well, on that note.
Yeah.
On Gwen's let's go out on Gwen's sadness this week. No, but we will be back at a future date. Not gonna jinx us. Talk about the next couple episodes, leftovers. Like I said, only 4 episodes left, so we're getting in the home stretch. Talking about ideas for what we're gonna do next. It'll be just as awesome, I'm sure. But yeah, you've been here with me, Tyler Harris, and
Gwen Hammer.
Tyler McKinley.
Justin Hammer.
let's all go to Australia.
No.
Is that their anthem?
Yeah, it's their tourism anthem. If they would like to pay me for it, Australia.
Can you imagine that coming on at the Olympics?
Let's all
The
go
gold
to
medal
Australia.
podium.
Yeah. Okay, see ya.